somebody in this room being willing to answer that question. What are you going to do about it? Some of you have already answered that question. You're very involved in what's going on in your community. And I'll tell you what OCPA is doing about it are events like this. There are programs like this where we want to try to educate folks. We want to put the tools in their hands because what we believe is that the answers to the problems facing our society are not in a government somewhere. They're in its people. They're in the people in this room. And so we want you to leave here inspired and activated and energized and looking forward to how you can get involved. And we want you to stay involved. We're going to keep doing events like these because we believe very strongly in these types of efforts and why it matters. And so I'm very excited to get to share with you the next panel that we'll be enjoying here today. Two folks that I know very well, one that has become a recent good friend and another that I've known for a little while. I'll introduce Becky first. And forgive me, I've got to get this back up so I can read it. There we go. Responsible for the overall design, implementation, and results of the global property and casualty risk management programs for Hobby Lobby stores and its affiliated companies. The companies consist of nearly 500 retail operations in 39 states, manufacturing facilities, distribution centers, a construction division, fleet operations, documentary and film production companies, and overseas trading companies. Her responsibilities include the development, administration, and oversight of the safety and loss control programs, product quality control, in-house claims, department and crisis management planning. Additionally, she's responsible for the insurance negotiation and managing the relationships with outside service companies, including brokers, insurers, loss control consultants, claims administrators, and other vendors. And I'll tell you, the thing about it, about Becky that is so inspiring is that she does all of that with such grace and poise, and it's really interesting to get to speak with her and talk with her. You know, there's a very different culture at Hobby Lobby. We were just speaking about that a moment ago. There's a very different culture in what they do. They're a very successful company, but they do that because they care about things that matter eternally. And that is really exciting. Those types of virtuous business people in our world are incredibly important because I tell you what, we talked earlier about folks saying conservatives don't care and business people don't care and we're not compassionate. I challenge you to find a more compassionate man than David Green. I challenge you to find somebody that cares more about the community around him and their leadership team there. And so I'm really excited that Becky's here with us today. I'm also excited that you get to hear from my colleague, Jonathan Small. Jonathan's the Fiscal Policy Director at OCPA. And there are a few people in our state and maybe even in our country that have a better handle on government and budget and spending and tax policy and why it matters not only at the Capitol, but why it matters to your family, why it matters at your dinner table. And Jonathan is so good at taking all the numbers and all the things that happen and putting those into an understandable context and sharing that with people because that's why we care. That's why OCPA exists, is not just because we want the budget to be smaller for the sake of the budget. We want the budget to be smaller because the lower your taxes are and the smaller that budget is and the less that government is intruding into your life, the more free you are, the better off your family is. That's why we care about this. And that's why I'm so thankful that we have both of these folks here to share with us a legislative update about what's going on down at the Capitol and how that impacts our families, what that means around the dinner table. And we're so thankful that you're here to hear that and so thankful that, that they're with us today. So, ladies and gentlemen, Becky Robinson and Jonathan Small.
Well, good morning, everybody. I'm really honored to be part of this discussion and couldn't have dreamed to be following such amazing women and such amazing leadership. So I'm not going to be able to live up to that, but I will do my best to talk to you about what I know. And my role at Hobby Lobby has been insurance and property casualty programs, claims and safety. I would never have guessed that I would be involved in the legislative arena, but quite frankly, we became involved because of what we were seeing happen in the state of Oklahoma. As you know about Hobby Lobby, we do whatever we can to take care of our employees. Over the last 3 years, our leadership has increased the minimum wage for our full-time employees, and you can now start any job at Hobby Lobby at a full-time rate at $13 an hour. Can you hear me now? Pull that up. Don't lose my notes. I gotta have my notes. And so what we've always strived to do is take care of our employees. That's why the risk management department is what it is. We have a staff of about 16 employees, And our role is to be an advocate for our employees, to walk them through a workers' comp claim process. On the customer side, we walk through the customer injury claims. If there's any property damage, we walk through that process with them as well. We look at everything from a customer service standpoint because that's who we are. That's who Hobby Lobby is. We want to take care of the community and certainly our patrons. So when it comes to workers' comp, my team is responsible for, we've actually grown, we're now in 43 states, and in fact, by the end of this year, we will most likely be in 45 states. So we continue to grow. We've been extremely successful. We had one of the best years that we've had in our organization just this last year. And being privately held, we're able to do a lot of things that many employers can't. And one of those is being very involved in the claim process. So when we look at our jurisdictional comparisons, what I mean by that is we handle every claim the same way, depending on what type of injury it is, depending on where the injury occurred. We may get different results. And so over the years, we've been trending that information, and Oklahoma, for Hobby Lobby, has consistently ranked in the top 5 as one of the worst states for our organization. And that ranks up there with Illinois and California, and you wouldn't think that Oklahoma would rank that high with those states, but for us, that's what we're seeing. And a couple years ago, we were hearing some discussion about legislation coming to Oklahoma, about a change being proposed, about a potential alternative being brought under the workers' comp program. It's modeled after the Texas program. We were very heavily involved in a group called the OIBC, the Oklahoma Injury Benefit Coalition. And along with other employers and our partners at the state chamber, last year we were very successful in discussing workers' comp. Right after coming off a 2011 work comp reform that certainly had some improvements in place, but we were looking to bring something different and something unique to the state and provide employers an opportunity to take care of their employees. So when I say we were very close, we actually lost by roughly 6 votes of having new legislation last year that would have created an opt-out similar to what they have done in Texas. We felt like that put us on a path for today, where we are today, and we worked over the summer. We worked with the legislative members in the House and Senate, led by Senator Bingman, and worked with them to craft legislation along with the state chamber that turns our system from an adversarial workers' comp court to an administrative system. And what that means basically is it removes a lot of the litigious component out of a work comp claim process. Just want to share with you some statistics that I brought, because everybody loves to hear about numbers, especially, you know, my background's finance, so that's really what I focus on. In 2012, Oregon consistently ranks every state and compares data among what the lost cost dollars are and where they sit nationally. And in this study that Oregon illustrated, Oklahoma is 6th worst in the state, in the nation. So again, I share Hobby Lobby's perspective. We believe that Oklahoma is the 5th worst for us, but nationally, for other companies, small and large, Oklahoma is ranking as the 6th worst. Some of the other states that are in that group is California, Illinois, and New York. And then we have Alaska and Connecticut as the other states that rank high up there. Our pure lost cost dollars in Oklahoma, what that means is what we're paying on every work comp claim per payroll dollars and premium costs that are associated with that. We pay $2 versus, actually over $2 versus Arkansas and Texas, and they're both under $1 each. And so when you look at the administrative system, a lot of the discussion has leaned on what Arkansas has done over the years. They've had an administrative system for many years. In '92, they had significant reform that put some language in their legislation that created strict interpretation and required the administrative law judges to stay along with the law, whatever the law says, rather than try to interpret it, try to have an opinion, and in other words, consider both sides and then go down the middle. So we took the language from Arkansas, we took some benefits from Kansas, We basically have a tremendous bill in Senate Bill 1062, which I'll get to in just a minute. But it's based off Arkansas, Kansas, and then, of course, Texas. When I talked about the opt-out provision, we have that language in the 1062 bill. The difference is this year it has some minimum benefits that will mirror the administrative system. And those minimum benefits are something unique to Oklahoma. Texas doesn't do that. Texas, you can do whatever you want. You don't have to provide any benefits whatsoever. But we wanted to make sure there was an advocate for the employee. And so by carving out minimum benefits, and of course employers can increase those benefits if they so choose, then that way there's a comparative market. And it also creates some opportunities for insurance companies and businesses alike to be creative with their workers' comp program. Some of the other things I want to tell you about with Oklahoma, why we're failing. We have a lost time claim frequency, and I know I'm going to lose a lot of you guys because this is work comp stuff and it's probably not really exciting and sexy. But we have a lost time claim frequency of 1,400 claims per 100,000 workers. So for Oklahoma to fare in that regard, basically what that means is we're not getting our employees back to work in a timely manner. They're off work. When you compare that to Arkansas and Texas, Arkansas has 650 claims per 100,000 workers, and Texas has 700 claims per 100,000 workers. So we're worse, obviously. We're twice as bad as our neighboring states, and that doesn't allow us to be competitive. We lose our businesses to other states because of this. We also have challenges losing employees to some of those other states, only because they don't seem that this is as friendly as it could be. They may not be getting the medical outcomes. Our indemnity benefits in Oklahoma are also mirrored off of this statistic. For every single claim in the state of Oklahoma, 55% of that reflects indemnity. So that's our lost time dollars is what we equate that to. In neighboring states on a regional basis, when you look at Oklahoma compared regionally, that equates to 38%. So we're paying a lot more on our claims, and our employees are not getting better. That's the bottom line. What that boils down to is a lot of time that's wasted in the process. Texas has 5 times more employees than the state of Oklahoma, yet our claims in Oklahoma, we have, Texas has 5 times as many workers, and we have 5 times as many trials and contested case hearings. So basically, every claim that walks through the workers' comp court is taking twice as long, and that means our employees are not getting the medical treatment that they need. Give you a little bit of background on what we do at Hobby Lobby. We have a return to work program. We've actually partnered with the regional food bank to provide transitional work for our employees if we don't have it available in our warehouse. So we're trying to find a way to bring the employees back to work in a process that's slow and meets with whatever restrictions that they have. We also have a strong prescription drug management program. We also have medical management program, but yet we're still seeing the numbers that are coming out in Oklahoma. And it seems to me that once an employee obtains an attorney, the attorney will do everything they can not to bring the employee back to work. It's counterintuitive to what we're trying to get done in the business world. And what we're trying to do with Senate Bill 1062 is to encourage those employees to come back to work, to remove some of the incentives for the attorneys, and by default, we will have better health outcomes. 1062 has language in it that refers to occupational disability guidelines. And you may hear on the news ODG, that's what we refer to as the Occupational Disability Guidelines. And what that is, it's a measure that contains data nationally from every jurisdiction, trends medical outcomes, trends the type of job task. So for example, a clerical employee will do something different than a line worker. There's different needs based on what your job tasks are. And the ODG guidelines trends that and provides the best recommendations so that that employee can have the best outcomes. So 1062 has that language. Back in 2011, with the work comp reform that occurred back then, there were ODG was permitted in that bill as well, but there was a carve-out called Oklahoma Treatment Guidelines, which allowed some doctors to exit ODG and create their own guidelines. So we feel like this is a really great piece of legislation on the medical front. Some of you may not realize that Oklahoma is also 10th worst in the nation for prescription drug overdoses. The CDC puts out a study on that, and we also are in the top 10 with prescription fills. So not only are we handing out, dispensing these prescriptions, but we're also seeing a lot of drug overdoses. And so what we will also wanted to do in 1062 is address that piece. And part of what the ODG guidelines allows is for some control on the prescription dispensing. So we're really excited to see that part of 1062 as well. So, you know, one of the things I like to talk about is litigation, because that's why I'm sitting here. As I shared, I'm an insurance person and finance background. I don't really get the legislative piece. That's not who I am, but I'm very passionate about my company, and I want to do what's right for my employees. And when we see our litigation rates go up in Oklahoma, the people that are hurt at the end of the day is our employees. If any of you have been at the work comp court, oftentimes that's the very first time that that employee meets their attorney. It's interesting to walk by and just see the attorneys try to find their client and make those introductions. So, and I can recall one time when I first started doing this, I went to the work comp court, had built up a really good relationship with one of the claimants, and of course you got an attorney. Once you got an attorney, we weren't allowed to talk to him anymore. But we go down to the court to represent our company, and I saw her and I said, "Hey, Joanna, how you doing? So good to see you." Boy, I tell you what, that attorney, that claimant attorney, just laid into me and didn't want me having any kind of relationship with that employee whatsoever. So from an adversarial standpoint, what we're trying to do is just eliminate that. You know, we want our employees to continue to work and continue to have a lifestyle that they're accustomed to. The process just doesn't bode well for the state of Oklahoma. Our litigation rate in Oklahoma has gone from 1% litigated to 7% in a matter of 4 years. And that may not seem like a lot to, you know, from a statistical standpoint, but when you look at the average cost of what a litigation claim is costing us, we're spending about $2 million in Oklahoma alone on litigation. And that's, for our company, really unacceptable. We got to get our hands around what's going on in Oklahoma, and at the end of the day, be able to take care of our employees. So some of the other things, part of 1062, you, I'm sure, will start hearing a lot about it. I saw one commercial this morning 4 times before I left my house. So there's going to be a lot of discussion about it, because it's an emotional debate. You know, I really want to emphasize, you're going to hear some negative pieces come out, but when you look at what Oklahoma has done for a number of years, where our benefits are tracking, we're really not in line regionally. So what this bill does is it puts us in a competitive arena on a regional basis. So you may hear that some benefits have been lowered, and that is the case, but we're also consistent with what the region's doing. But more importantly, by moving to administrative system, we're going to see the claims move quicker. We're going to have better health outcomes because of the ODG guidelines. And at the end of the day, that employee can come back to my place or come back to your place and be in a better position to do so. So 1062 converts the workers' comp court to an administrative setting, and there's going to be some ALJs appointed. It's going to have a commission that's associated with that. You'll also hear that there's a lot of costs involved to do that. The way the bill has been structured, I believe that there's 3 years outlined for the tail of those claims to come off, the old claims under the judicial system. And I believe currently those claims are costing around $4.5 million. I think it's somewhere around that. Jennifer, you may know that. But as that number dwindles down, obviously those numbers are going to come down too. The rating on for what NCCI told us about 1062 is we're going to be able to save over $200 million in the state alone on these claims, and that's significant by any means. If you look at the state employees, I think they represent about 18% of our employees, and that's going to be significant savings on the state level. So we're excited to see that money is going to be able to be used back in the system and maybe the state will have some benefit from that as well. And then, of course, the option is a part of this as well, which will allow employers to create an alternative program. So you can have a workers' comp claim process, but design your own benefit plan. And that's actually how I got involved. We do that down in Texas. We created our own benefit plan, and we actually pay our employees 90% of their average weekly wage. We do it on a payroll continuation. They continue to get their health care deductions. They continue to get their 401k deductions, any other deductions that they might have. They really don't see a skip and beat, and that's pretty unique nationally. That's not anything you see in any other jurisdiction. We also have a 90% satisfaction rate in Texas. But guess what? Our Texas claims cost us a third of what they cost us here in Oklahoma. So, you can make your employees happy, and it's not all about paying them off, which is what our system has turned into. Rather than taking care of our employees, providing them the best medical care, once an attorney gets involved, the thought process turns to how much can we get out of this claim. And I think it's really unfortunate that that's the direction that we've gone, but we are tasked with a tremendous opportunity. I've never been part of anything so exciting and scary, but I'm really excited to see our partners help us in this process, and the State Chamber has been huge, and thank you guys for being here. Good to see you all too. But with that, I can open it up to some questions.
Yeah, if we have any questions, there we go, specific to this issue, we'll do that, and then we'll let Jonathan speak, and there'll be time for general questions after that. So please go right ahead. And if someone in the back has a microphone, I don't know if I can make it to you. I know you can. That's right.
I read the other day in the paper that this is not my area. One of the things they talked about was that carpal tunnel injuries wouldn't be included in workers' comp. Is that true? There are many occupations where people actually do have repetitive motion injuries because of their work. So.
Yeah, with respect to repetitive motion injuries, there is some language that's tighter in this bill under 1062 than allowing every carpal tunnel claim to come in. What a lot of people don't understand nationally is there are many states going away from covering carpal tunnel because a lot of it can be related to lifestyle. A lot of it can be related to degenerative concerns or part of your whole body makeup. So strains all of that is still covered, but there is some tightening up on the language with respect to full-blown carpal tunnel.
Yes.
I had one question, and I don't know if you covered this before I came back in the room, but did you have a statistic that would tell us in the state of Oklahoma if a claimant on average went to an attorney, what percentage went to the attorney versus to the claimant, to the injured worker? Do you know what that is?
Well, current law allows for 20% of the PPD settlement to go to the attorney. They also get a portion of the TTD. So the weekly wage benefit that the employee gets, let's say they get $500 a week, attorney would get a percentage of that as well. And that's actually pretty standard nationally. What this language does is it tightens that up as well because it discourages attorneys from taking claims that are accepted. So if I have an employee that's been injured on my job and we're treating him, providing him medical care, we've accepted the claim. Really, I guess my question has always been, why do you get an attorney? We're moving your claim along. Once you get an attorney, then it delays. Your medical care stops because the attorney tries to get you into a different doctor and has a different agenda. So the language tightens that up quite a bit, and claims that are compensable are not going to provide the incentives that for attorneys to take.
If I may, Becky did a really good job. There's a statistic. This is the only statistic you need to know about how bad our workers' comp system needs to be replaced. So if you hear all the scare tactics in the media from liberal reporters that are hired to slant a story from one perspective, in Oklahoma, when you have a work comp claim, 55% of the claim is spent on adjudicating and running the claim through the process. So 55% is going to attorneys and whatever upheaval is going on. Only 45% is spent on medical benefits for the employee. Across the nation, that number is flipped, where 59% of benefits is actually spent on the employee through medical benefits. In the region, it's 62%. So when you see all these commercials that talk about how great the system is for everyone, that's just actually not the case. And she's right. I've got a personal story from a family member. They called us, they got hurt on work, and they heard, oh, Jonathan works at the Capitol, maybe he can help. So they had a temporary injury. Their employer said, hey, we're going to pay you to fix all of your medical bills. We're going to pay you $6,000 to $7,000 for that full month that you're gone. And we really want to be able to get you back to work. Well, unfortunately, they bought into a culture that was established in this state of where people want to try to get a free check. They didn't take my advice. They had what was basically a fracture of an ankle that was going to be able to be recovered in about 6 weeks. They still don't have their claim settled because she went to the attorney, and if the attorney settles the claim for the $8,000 right now, which is only about $1,000 more than she was going to get without him, he's not going to make any money. So she hasn't gotten any money at all because she let an attorney talk her into hiring her. So it's hurt their family income. It's hurt some of the other medical bills that she's had to pay because this claim is still being disputed. And that's the way it personally hurts families and our brothers and sisters, is that when people are at work, that's how they're able to provide for their family. We can't sustain a system where people get free checks.
Go right ahead. We'll take this last question and then we'll go on with Jonathan's presentation. Thanks.
What can we do as an audience to help you all in this effort?
We would ask that everybody reach out to their House member. The bill passed the Senate on Wednesday. It passed overwhelmingly in the Senate. We anticipated that would be the case, but the House is going to be much more challenging for us. There's a lot of dynamics in the House, and we would like for the House members to hear from you. We have spent weeks writing letters and calling and emailing our Senate members, and now we're working on the House side. It'll be a couple more weeks before it's heard over on the House side, but if you could start that campaign now and reach out, we would really appreciate that.
Hey, Marion, vote for it.
We have two members of the House of Representatives in the room, Representative Marion Cooksey and Representative Pam Peterson, our floor leader, and they're both for it. So that's
Representative Cooksey actually signed on as a co-author, so thank you for that.
Jonathan, go right ahead.
Okay, well, since I'm the nerd, the first thing I'm going to do is start my iPhone stopwatch so I don't bore you. And then also I was going to say, I was talking with Brian, I am very comfortable in this room because we have 3 daughters, and then we have a 4th daughter on the way on June 9th. I had 3 sisters. I have 5 aunts. Actually, the monthly, it comes out monthly, I think. The monthly edition of White House Black Market, you have seen that store, incredible store. It was addressed to me first because I had bought my wife heels from there. Dillard's is a great place to get heels and dresses as well. So I just wanted to let you know that I'm pretty comfortable. I think I want to talk about something that actually is going to end up fitting in well with what Becky talked about today, and it's something that's very important. You heard from Star and Kate, and you probably hear from her earlier about this current condition that we have where we are incentivizing people to be envious of others and not work. And to bring some of this home to Oklahoma, I want to talk to you today about a great opportunity that I think we have, and that's for Medicaid reform. But so first of all, so we can set the stage of why do we even need to talk about Medicaid reform in Oklahoma, is that did you know that in the state of Oklahoma, there are over 30 counties where more than 30% of their population is on state Medicaid. which is a welfare program that you fund. Not only that, there's actually a county that has over 43% of its population on Medicaid. To give you an idea of the massive enrollment growth that we have seen at the Medicaid agency, beginning in 1995, Medicaid enrollment was around 393,000. It was now over 1 million, according to the Healthcare Authority. So we've seen significant growth. The Medicaid enrollment and growth, it happens whether we have a good economy or not. You'll hear people say that, oh, enrollment is only growing because of the economy. Well, we don't see it decline when the economy gets better. And I think here's some powerful statistics for us in dealing with families. 64% of children that are born in Oklahoma are born on Medicaid. They're supported by you taxpayers. 72% of children that were under 5 last year were on Medicaid at some point. And I think that drives home what we're talking about today, the need to reform our broken workers' compensation system so that we can move jobs into the state of Oklahoma so people are more empowered to be able to provide for themselves. And I think the message is clear on Medicaid. The amount that the state pays for Medicaid has increased over 161% over the last 10 years, so that excludes federal dollars. If you include federal dollars, which it's all taxpayer money, unless you guys don't pay federal income taxes. You guys pay federal income taxes, right? Okay, so that dispels this notion that federal grants are free. The Medicaid budget as a whole has increased from $2 billion to $4.4 billion over just the last 10 years. And so one of the things that OCPA has been working on with a great friend of ours, the Foundation for Government Accountability in Florida, is talking about the awesome Medicaid reforms that have happened there. Medicaid in Florida and across the country is having some of the same problems that it's having here in Oklahoma. The better presenter that we wanted to get here today was Christy Herrera. She's the Vice President of Policy for FGA. She was not able to make it. That's why you got stuck with me talking about Medicaid reform. But so in short, what happened in Florida is that they were experiencing the same challenge that Oklahoma has, where Medicaid was continuing to become a larger and larger portion of their budget. It just so happened that Jeb Bush was the governor of Florida at the time, and he was tired of Medicaid continuing to drain his budget. So he told his brother, who was the president at the time, I need to reform my Medicaid program, approve my waiver, or I'm going to make it difficult for you with voters in Florida. So President Bush approved his brother's Medicaid waiver after a lengthy process. And Florida began Medicaid reform in 2 urban counties in the Jacksonville area of Florida, and then in 3 rural counties as well. So this is kind of a testament to the fact that Medicaid reform can even work in areas where there's a limited number of providers or hospitals. So what ended up happening was they needed it because their spending was growing at 13% per year. Their Medicaid was going to be 59% of their state budget by 2015. They had 20 waivers. 2/3 of their Medicaid was traditional fee-for-service, or what we like to refer to as pay and chase. So a Medicaid patient runs into a provider, they get care, there's no coordination of care, and then the provider gets a check from the government within 48 hours, and that's the extent of the care. Well, some of the awesome things that happened versus old Medicaid, and we like to refer to it as old Medicaid, is that government is the consumer. Government makes all the choices for the employee. And one of the things that we want to see in public policy in Oklahoma is we want to start seeing these programs that are supposed to help the poor actually be a hand up. One of the statements that I want to read that I think is really powerful from our current speaker that Karma reminded me of is, I love this quote from T.W. Shannon. He said that in referring to enrollment, that's not how you define compassion, by putting more people on it. You define compassion by getting them off of Medicaid and back to work. And that's some of what Florida has been able to experience in transitioning their program. One of the awesome things about the Medicaid program is that they have real choices and accountability. So to give you an example right now, the way old Medicaid works in Oklahoma is that you can go to the emergency room up to 16 times and there be no consequence. It's no wonder that Medicaid patients go to the emergency room at a higher rate than both the uninsured and private insured market in many areas, because there's no consequence. One of the other things that Medicaid reform has done in Florida is provided choice counselors, which help coordinate the care. And so you're like, what do you mean by that, coordinate care? So typically what happens, because often Medicaid is not coordinated, Oklahoma pays really well because they've been effective at keeping the reimbursements high, but there's no incentivizing of either doctors or providers or any of the managed care components currently to coordinate the care. So if I'm a mom and my child has an ear infection, then right now I just go to the emergency room and I have to wait a long time, and I eventually get care, so it makes it harder for me to go to work in the morning. And then the state covers a high check for an emergency visit for a ear infection. But what happens in Florida is that that same mom shows up at the hospital, and there's a care associate there. It's a care associate that it's a private company. It's not operated by the state, and the state pays them to help patients make smarter decisions. So what they say to that mom, that single mom, is, hey, guess what? If you'll come back in 2 days or tomorrow, you can see a doctor at an appointment. And not only that, if you do that, you'll be incentivized for not coming to the emergency room. So not only are they getting better health outcomes, they're incentivizing patients on Medicaid to make smart decisions. You can it's similar to a flexible spending account. It's up to $125. So there are moms in Florida that are making healthy decisions both for them and their children, and it's resulting in them being able to make purchases that are smart purchases through Medicaid. So one of the awesome things that they've seen is that now Medicaid patients are actively involved in making health decisions. And we know that when, even though I've gained a lot of weight since high school, we do know that if you pay attention to your health, you're also probably going to pay attention to other aspects of your life as well. Florida is about to spread this pilot program to the entire state. What's awesome about this is, and one of the rare things that the current president does that I actually agree with, is that they have actually reapproved Florida's waiver. So even though we disagree with the president and don't want everyone on single-payer health care, even Kathleen Sebelius and Barack Obama see what's happening in Florida. I'd encourage you, if you have a chance, to check out MedicaidCure.org. There's an awesome story about two families that used to be in old Medicaid and now they're in new Medicaid, and the stories are incredible about how they've been empowered. There's one young man, his name is Morse. He's a triple amputee. He actually had never been on Medicaid or a government welfare before. He had a bicycle accident, motorcycle accident on the way back from work. Became a triple amputee. It's a blessing from God that he's even alive. He was able to reach his cell phone and call 911. But now Morse, he was in old Medicaid, he's in the new Medicaid, and he's talking about how he can help himself and others get a job and get off the Medicaid program so that others can use it. So I don't want to take up a lot of time boring you with more facts about Florida's Medicaid, but feel free to ask questions.
All right, any questions for Becky or Jonathan? Yes, right in the back.
I probably misunderstood the Florida plan, but when you're talking about incentivizing them with the special meeting, you're not giving them anything monetary or any reason why they would make up something to come back on a weekly basis. All they're doing is saying, if you come in at another time, it'll save you time, or is there another incentive?
Well, that's just an example of one of the incentives for the care. One of the other things that they do is they monitor the drug benefit usage of patients and providers, and they incentivize providers to get patients healthier as opposed to just continuing to chronically chronically use drugs. And so that's been able to cut down on prescription drug costs for Florida's Medicaid program as well. And one of the other things it's done is it's made the program predictable. That was just an example of one of many incentives that they use to try to help patients make wise decisions. One of the reasons that they have to structure it that way is, you know what our incentive is for most of us in the room? If you go to the emergency room on your health insurance, they are going to punish you when you pay for the claim. Right now, the Medicaid agency and most Medicaid agencies across the country and the administration, they interpret a copay as a barrier to care, which is insane. So, which is why they go to the emergency room, because there is no cost for them going to the emergency room.
Jonathan, any idea why Governor Rick Scott took the Medicaid expansion in Florida?
Yeah, that's a really good question. You know, it's funny to me how if you're a Republican governor like Mary Fallin and you determine not to do the exchange and you determine to do the Medicaid expansion, liberal reporters at mainstream newspapers in Oklahoma will write that it was totally political, that it's because you hate Barack Obama. But when a Republican who actually ran an ad campaign and spent $20.6 million against it changes his mind and does it, all of a sudden he cares about the poor. It actually has nothing to do with the fact that his popularity is tanked and that Barack Obama and Medicaid is actually really popular. To the extent that you see Republicans doing the Medicaid expansion is because they're in moderate to left-leaning states with electorates, and they're trying to preserve their political careers. They don't care about the poor, because if they cared about the poor, they would have accepted the Medicaid expansion to begin with.
Well, I appreciate both, and I know there are other questions. I'm terribly sorry, but we've run out of time for this panel. Let's give them a hand, Jonathan and Becky. Thank you guys very much. I know that we will have some time, and I'm very sorry for those that had questions that didn't get to ask them, but I know that we'll have some time, that they'll be around, and I'm sure they wouldn't mind at all if you caught them in the hallway or during one of our breaks and asked them whatever questions you might have. We can also get you some contact information if that would help as well. So thank you for your attention, and we really appreciate it. Karma, where are we headed next? Tina's got it. All right.
Okay, thank you again, and we're moving now into what we call our Real Policy Women of Oklahoma. So we'll be using the stage. If I could invite retired Major General Rita Aragon to come up to the front, Monica Lamb, Pam Peterson, and Marissa Treat.